So we had an absolutely gigantic victory yesterday. NBC News reported on this. Here's what they say. The House on Wednesday passed a measure aimed at withdrawing all U.S. military support for the Saudi Arabia-backed war in Yemen, the latest in a series of rebukes by Congress to President Donald Trump's foreign policy. The Democratic-led House advanced the bill 248 to 177 as its first major vote on foreign policy, making it a priority even as the administration resists congressional involvement in the conflict. Last year, with Republicans in the majority, the House refused to take up the measure in order to keep the president's hands from being tied on a key foreign policy area. Because a similar bill has passed the Senate before and is likely to pass again, it could be the first veto of Trump's presidency. The resolution, authored by Representative Ro Khanna, has strong support from both sides of the aisle. It would invoke the War Powers Resolution, inserting congressional oversight into the conflict in Yemen, effectively ending U.S. involvement and military assistance to the civil war there between the Yemen government and the Iran-backed Houthi rebels. So, listen, everybody should be sending love, support, gratitude, and congratulations to Ro Khanna, because he worked his ass off to get this done. And I'm not exaggerating even a tiny bit when I say that as a direct result of Ro Khanna's actions, countless lives are going to be saved. Because even though mainstream media outlets, tiptoe around it, the reality is the United States of America was backing a genocide being carried out by one of our top allies. So the details of what's happening in Yemen are just almost unfathomable. That's how bad it is. I mean, it is really just terrible. So you have the Saudi government is blocking ports, and as a direct result of blocking ports, food and medicine is not getting in. So you have millions of people in Yemen starving. You have people starving. You have a cholera epidemic. It's 100% treatable, but they're not allowing in the medicine to treat it. So young, emancipated children, we've seen pictures coming out of there of young, emancipated children, and I haven't even brought up yet the bomb fest that has been occurring for years. Thousands of innocent people have been killed, and we're talking about deliberate attacks on mosques, on hospitals, on schools. So make no mistake about it, it's a genocide. It's being done on purpose. It's trying to make the Yemeni people submit because there was a Sunni government that was ousted. Then you had the Shia Houthi rebels take over. And Saudi Arabia, of course, had an alliance with the previous Sunni government. They want another Sunni government in there. And the Houthi rebels are not giving up control. So basically the response from the Saudi government has been siege warfare. Like, let's just kill as many people and as many civilians as possible, and then that will make them submit. And this entire time, mind you, Saudi Arabia is sitting on the UN Human Rights Panel. I wish I was joking. But they are. And we, of course, are arming Saudi Arabia endlessly. So, and Donald Trump has made a big 180 since he was on the campaign trail and since before he was on the campaign trail, when he used to say, oh, Saudi Arabia, they're responsible for 9/11, really terrible, terrible government. And he used to understand that that was the hotbed of the ideology of Al-Qaeda, that you're talking about a fundamentalist Sunni Salafist government, and of course they funded radical madrasas around the world, and it actually is the number one state sponsor of terror. And Trump used to talk about that now that he's president, and now that you have Saudi Arabia literally giving Trump hundreds of thousands of dollars laundered through his hotel in D.C., which he shouldn't even have the right to have as he's president because that's a violation of the Emoluments Clause. Basically, he's being bought off by the Saudi government, and so he's delivering, and he's giving them billions and billions and billions of dollars of weapons as they're massacring innocent people. And then, of course, we have the nerve to turn around and pretend like, oh, we care about innocent Venezuelans, that's why we have to go in to protect human rights. No, as Noam Chomsky says, you're responsible for what you do. You're responsible for what you do. So what have we done? Armed one of the most brutal governments on the planet and aided them as they committed genocide. Hey, maybe we should stop that. Just a radical idea. Maybe we should stop that. And maybe all the fucking crocodile tears about, oh, Syria's Bashar al-Assad is a terrible guy. Oh, Maduro, oh, a terrible guy. Maybe all that comes across as horseshit because of our record. So you want to actually care about human rights? Stop funding, arming, propping up the Saudi government. Stop doing that with 73% of the world's dictatorships. And then maybe people will take you more seriously when you pretend to care about human rights. Just a thought. Well, Ro Khanna has been a leader on this front. He's been over a year. He's been working on trying to gather support. And basically, what ended up happening, and we've seen it unfold, is Bernie in the Senate, Ro Khanna in the House, working to get people, yes, on the left, but also on the right, because there's an argument to be made from a right-wing perspective, too. Now, there's this new rise of paleocons among the Republican base. Paleocons is the old school, like Pat Buchanan mindset, where despite all their flaws on issues of foreign policy, they think, yeah, I don't know why we should be nation builders. We should probably focus on our own country. That's one strain of anti-intervention thought on the right. Another one is libertarians typically are anti-intervention, and we've seen that in the Senate with Rand Paul, for example, even Mike Lee, who on many other issues is horrendous, but on this issue, he says, hey, very simply, I don't know why we should be aiding like a radical theocratic government, and I also don't know why Congress has just given its power away to this insanely authoritarian executive branch. Under the Constitution, Congress has to declare war. But what we've been doing recently is, I don't know, just fucking the executive branch sends troops wherever the fuck they want on a whim, and Congress just sits idly by. So it honestly is a scandal that we're bombing 8 different countries, because that's what we're doing. We're bombing 8 different countries right now, never mind the shadow war that we're doing with all our drone bases in Africa, which is a much longer story and a much longer conversation for a different day. But that's all unconstitutional, and what they do is they lie, and they say, oh, it's okay because we're just adding this on to the authorization for use of military force that we got under the Bush administration. So in other words, their argument is the war on terror authorization for use of military force now includes 8 different countries, which makes no sense, and that's utterly made up. And on top of that, they say, oh, because we passed that authorization for use of military force to go after Al-Qaeda, that also means we get to go after aid going after the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The Houthi rebels, not saying they're good people, they're fighting Al-Qaeda. So when we say we're going to use this authorization for use of military force, which was to go against Al-Qaeda, we're going to now use that to go against the people who are fighting Al-Qaeda. That makes no sense. And that's a legal argument that does not stand up. So the fact that they've now gotten this through the House and it's likely to get through the Senate is amazing, but like they said, Trump might veto it. Now, if Trump vetoes it, first of all, every single Democrat in the country should be hair on fire out there slamming him day in, day out, day in, day out. But furthermore, assuming he vetoes it, take his bitch ass to court. Because there was never an approval in the first place to aid Saudi Arabia in destroying Yemen. For us to be in Yemen, as we are, by the way, assisting with airstrikes. There was never that authorization in the first place. There was also never authorization for us to be in fucking Syria. So all of these interventions are unconstitutional. You could say the war in Afghanistan is not. You could say, arguably, the war in Iraq, I mean, it is because it's illegal under international law, but you could say at least it passed in the U.S., but outside of Iraq and Afghanistan, which we need to end, all the other ones are just brazenly illegal interventions. Brazenly. So Ro Khanna did an amazing thing here. Credit to him. Credit to everybody who sided with him. Credit to even the people on the Republican side who crossed the aisle and supported this and asserted their constitutional authority. And this is the first time since 9/11 that Congress flexed their authority on war issues. So we need to get back to that, because Congress is going to be a lot more accountable to you and I and the will of the people than the executive branch is. And we've seen it, listen, not just under Republican presidents, under Democratic presidents. You know, it was Barack Obama who took us from bombing 2 countries to 7. He actually increased in Afghanistan. He got us out of Iraq for 3.5 minutes and put us right back in. So, with Congress saying, no, we're going to be the ones to get the last word on this, that's wonderful. But also the next step is, because it's not like Congress is that much better. They are better than just the executive branch making these decisions, because there's some accountability that's dispersed. But then also we got to get the military-industrial complex money out of the system, because you're going to have many people who have conflict of interest and henceforth will make the wrong decision. But Ro Khanna has done something amazing here, and this alone should put him on the map as leader of the Democrats. Ro Khanna has shown more leadership than Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer ever have. You can quote me on that, bitch. I mean it. That's real. Remember, it was also Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders. They love to look down their nose at progressives and say, oh, you have to be practical to get things done. What's wrong with you? You have to reach across the aisle and give the Republicans everything they want. I have no problem with reaching across the aisle, but when it's towards something that actually is positive and works with our left-wing ideology, because we're on the left. That's what Ro Khanna's done here. Furthermore, remember, it was Ro Khanna that got 350,000 Amazon workers a $15 minimum wage, a living wage. It was him and Bernie Sanders who came up with the Stop Bezos Act, which put so much pressure on Jeff Bezos, he was like, okay, don't pass that law. I'm gonna raise the wages. Oh, aren't I so benevolent? So it's only the left that actually gets stuff done that's good for the people. Have you noticed that? Yemen, Amazon. I mean, come on, man. So this is leadership, and Ro Khanna is the ideas person on the left who's leading on many fronts. It was him and Ilhan Omar who were the only ones to speak out on Venezuela in a forceful way and be clear in their message. Bernie said something, but it was convoluted, and AOC had retweeted Ro Khanna's statement on it, but it was Ro Khanna and Ilhan Omar who really stuck their neck out there and said, no, this is wrong, and we shouldn't be doing it. And Tulsi Gabbard, by the way. Credit to Tulsi Gabbard, who's also been a leader on these issues. But this is real leadership. And it's a good day when we finally take a step towards rolling back one of our disastrous interventions. And of course, I would go further, but you guys know me. I mean, I would cut off all military aid to Saudi Arabia and say, duh, of course we shouldn't be giving them military intervention. But then again, I'd also do it to Israel. How dare I? How anti-Semitic it is of I to say that a right-wing maniac like Netanyahu shouldn't have weapons. $38 billion worth of weapons, where he then turns around and uses it towards backing apartheid and expanding illegal settlements. So I would stop arming every human rights violator that we arm. And by the way, you would see a giant decrease in terrorism immediately if you did that. Because it's our weapons that end up in the hands of Al-Qaeda in Syria, that ends up in the hands of Al-Qaeda in Yemen. So if we just stopped arming everybody, that would be an amazing change overnight, and violence would decrease massively the world over overnight. So I would do that too. But this is really wonderful of Ro Khanna here. And I have a feeling he's going to continue to lead on these issues. And if he keeps racking up W's like this, look out, man. Because Ro Khanna is the future of the Democratic Party.